We've taken a high-level look at the buildings and units, so let's look at the guts of it, the most important mechanic to understand when starting off, and that's the resource aspect to this game. Resources are not collected, but rather generated via what is called an expansion point. At a high level, there are two types of resource generators, and one means of cash infusion. We will cover the quick stash cash a bit later. For now, we're focusing on the two main income generators. When you load into the game for the first time on the minimap, you'll see a closed circle, and these are the points called strong points. They look like this on the minimap and like this in the game. The second income generator are called checkpoints, which is represented by a flag on the minimap. They look different on the minimap, and this is what they look like. Now, there is a third expansion point called a logistic point. You'll see it on the minimap represented as a cross with a circle with an X. These points do not generate income at all, but can be captured and upgraded with an outpost, and that allows you to build a second base. Okay, so how do we generate income? Generating income can be done by using units to capture and control expansion points. Any ground unit can take an expansion point by being in the circle area as long as it's not occupied by an outpost. The outpost will have to be destroyed before an expansion point can be captured. And note that aircraft cannot take control points at all. Once a control point is under your control, it will change to your color selected for the game and will generate steady income for you as long as it maintains under your control. So what's the difference between a strong point and a checkpoint? So both strong point and checkpoint generate income, but let's start off with explaining strong points. These points are almost always closest to your base and provide the most income generation potential in early game stages. So it's in your best interest to take these points first and upgrade with an outpost as soon as possible. For example, strong points will generate 14 by default, whereas checkpoints generate 10 for the first 5 minutes by default. You can increase the income on strong points by building an outpost. That yields an additional $14, so you'll get up to $28 every tick. By tick, I mean every time you see that number appear above the expansion point. Ticks every second or so, and this number indicates what you're getting from that point, whether it be an expansion or strong point. Now you can upgrade strong points by adding a fuel station to your outpost, which grants an additional 14. So now you've reached the maximum income of a strong point, which is 42 every tick. And again, this is because you have an outpost and an upgrade called fuel station, so not bad at all. Now checkpoints are different in a couple different ways. Checkpoints are less focused on economic advantages and more to aid in warfare and map control. However, checkpoints still generate income, but it increases differently. Income generation from checkpoints is completely out of your control and is determined by game time. So to put simply, checkpoints income generation increases in 5-minute intervals. What this means is all checkpoints on the map for the first 5 minutes will produce 10 per tick, then at 10 minutes produce 15, and so on. Checkpoints can produce a maximum of 30, which means 20 minutes of game time has been reached if you see that figure. So just to be clear, income generation on checkpoints is automatic and linked to the game time. No outpost or upgrade will increase income on checkpoints. It's all automatic and controlled by game time. This allows you to make other critical decisions on how to use checkpoints as they serve many other purposes. Let's talk about the cash infusion. Checkpoints offer a secondary way to gain additional cash infusion. Let me walk you through the scenario for what is termed bounties in GC. It's a pretty cool, neat feature. Okay, so let's say you get beat hard, but you manage to recapture a checkpoint from your enemy. Well, not only do you get the checkpoint, but by capturing a checkpoint from the enemy, you also get a bounty. Bounties are a one-time cash injection rewarded for capturing an enemy checkpoint. The amount of a bounty is completely determined on how long your enemy maintains continuous control of a checkpoint. As an example, you finally capture a checkpoint after it's been held by the enemy for say 50 minutes. Well, in that case, the cash bounty is going to be pretty damn sweet. But if you're constantly exchanging control over a checkpoint, the cash bounty will be pitiful. The aim here is to provide an excellent way for comebacks and to help the underdog fight back. You'll see this figure on control points near the base of the flag. This is a cash bounty amount. It will continue to increase all the way up to a maximum of 2,000. So some huge rewards granted when you take back control of checkpoints that have been held by your enemy for long periods. An excellent little function, I reckon. We've mentioned outposts a lot, but let's go into a bit more detail. Outposts are probably the second most important thing to understand. Each faction has a different outpost unit that can be built from the command center. Outpost units is always the very first slot on your command center. EDU have a Pioneer, which basically has no other purpose or use than building outpost. Vanguard have a Halo, which is a multi-purpose helicopter that kind of looks like the Russian Mi-26. A unique attribute to Vanguard is the Halo can actually deploy multiple outposts by resupplying from a command center. A very cost-effective process, however, Halos are a bit slower. Halo can also transport one unit, and in fact it can be ready with an outpost and carry a ground unit at the same time. There is no drop or pickup animation, which makes this a particularly dangerous special trait to Vanguard that cannot be taken lightly. Carpathians have the battle bus, which can transport 2 infantry units. Now it's important to note that units can't fire out of the battle bus, unfortunately, and it's only for transport. but it's still pretty deadly, especially when you're not expecting it. Now there are some upgrades you can add to Outpost. Fuel station, supply depot and crane are all available upgrades for an outpost for all factions. But there's a bit more to it than that. An outpost on a strong point only allows the building of a fuel station upgrade. However, checkpoints can have supply depot and crane upgrade, but you can only select one of these options, and fuel station won't be available. So say you get a supply depot upgrade, that will increase your support point limits, but once you've purchased that upgrade, you can't change your mind and then get the crane upgrade on that outpost. Outposts have to be destroyed and then a new one built if you want to change your selection. But hey, there is force fire, so you could always try kill it yourself if you needed to. So choosing the crane upgrade will allow the constructions of buildings in and around the checkpoint. Handy if you want to get to your enemy faster or build up a defensible area. And as mentioned, if you construct an outpost on a logistic point, you can only get the crane upgrade. That will allow you to build a second base. Now note, outposts will change a bit by the time early release arrives, as there'll be more diversified and possible options. I'm not exactly sure what that means or what it'll look like yet, but maybe each faction will have a unique upgrade option. But yeah, again, we'll have to wait and see on that one. Moving on to support points. You'll find support point on your heads up display here. You'll notice the number increases automatically as the game goes along. Supply points can be exchanged to call in things like Tomahawk missile, artillery bombardment, or a repair drop. Basically like general abilities that can morph and change the outcome of battles. How and when you spend your support points is going to be a critical thing to victory or also your demise. Another way to spend support points are using units with special abilities. An easy example of this is riflemen can build a trench, which will cost you support points each time you want to trench your riflemen. So be careful, don't do what I do and use trench and then untrench, expecting to be able to trench again right away, as you may be out of supply points. Why can't I? You can increase the production of supply points by building power plants. Power plants will add an additional 2 points per tick to your support points. But don't worry, we won't go into too much about what this means, as this number is subject to change and we'll cover it later. But just know that power plants are good, they will increase your production of support points. The other way to gain support points is to pick up these green looking symbols, which represent rescuing injured personnel. For every second vehicle destroyed, a green thing will be dropped where they perished. You can walk or drive over them to recover some command points. And as mentioned, you can increase the maximum limit of your command points by purchasing the supply depot upgrade on your outpost.